Hello everybody, welcome back. In today's video, what I'm getting started on is a two-sided mausoleum. And what I mean by that is I'm going to actually have two different faces with two different facades on opposite ends of this mausoleum. The reason I'm doing this is one is going to be a little bit of a space-saving kind of thing because I can actually incorporate two different scares in this one prop. One side could be a live actor and the other side could be like an animatronic or maybe even a flying crane ghost or something like that. So let's go ahead and continue working on this and see how this one turns out. All right, so both of them are right about 3/4 done. I still want to do a little bit of decorative like stuff up here, like some kind of a thing up here. You see where I'm going to be making a little top piece there. I want to do something on that one right there and stuff like that. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and start working on the framing so I can turn this into my two-sided mausoleum. And then I'll start working on some of like the details and then figure out what I want to put in the dead space, whether it's going to be a flying crank ghost or something like that. So let me go ahead and start cutting some lumber and we're going to make some walls. Now all I'm going to be using to construct the walls is just regular 1x2s and screws. And the game plan for this particular prop is I'm not going to do the hinging on this particular one just because of the overall size. But this one is definitely one that's going to have to be disassembled every time I need to store it. Alright, so I got both walls built. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and kind of screw everything together real fast so I can start to see the overall size and see how everything's going to line up. The framing for the roof is going to be the same as the walls. It's just going to be 1x2s that's going to be mitered to match the pitch of the roof and the pitch of the walls. Alright, so I got all my individual pieces cut. So I'm going to go ahead and get the roof sections assembled so I can get them put up on top and then we can start getting this thing covered and see this thing take shape. Now for the moment, all I'm going to be using is just some short screws just to hold everything in position. After everything's in position, then I'm going to come back with some little L brackets and screw L brackets to everything and get it to where as I take things apart and I go to put it back together, it's easier to line everything back up. Alright, now for the roof, it's going to be the same construction as the smaller mausoleums. It's going to be a piece of foam board glued to the roof sections, but this is actually going to be hinged, so when I take it off, I can actually fold it up easier for storage. I'm just not doing that on the sides because they're so large. Alright, so I decided that I really want to make sure that this thing is nice and rigid. So I went ahead and picked up a couple sheets of that thin veneer wood. I'm going to put that on the wood framing. Now I'm going to nail it to it first, and I'll just strike some lines and cut it after the fact, which I think is going to be a little bit easier to do. And I'm still going to use my house wrap that I've been using, but mainly just to kind of help protect the wood from the elements. Even with it being painted, this will just give me an extra layer of protection to make sure the wood doesn't have issues. Alright, the two walls are built, covered, so let's go ahead and put them in position. We're going to start seeing this thing take shape. Alright, so I'm going to get started on the top pieces. Now the one side that has the curved kind of door, I want to create a nice decorative piece that's going to go above it. So right now I got my little template made, so this way I can make everything symmetrical looking. And I'm going to attempt to cut this out and make this thing work. So hope I'm not getting too fancy with this, but let's see how it turns out. Alright, let the cutting commence. Now all I'm using right here is just a small knife that keeps super sharp. So this way when I cut it out I can try to make sure that my lines look nice and good and straight. But I do got to be very careful and very slow while I'm doing this because I got a lot of small areas and I don't want this to break on me. Now all I'm doing right here is I'm taking a razor blade and taking off all the square edges to kind of make it a little bit more rounded and kind of make it look a little bit nicer. And you notice it got a little louder in the shop. That's the rain hitting my roof. When that rain hits that metal roof, man, it is horrible. Okay, so I got the two upper windows made. I kept them pretty much the same shape as the door openings at the bottom. So the one side has that kind of arched kind of door and the other one has a flat door. So I stuck with that for the windows. Alright, so with both pieces cut and made, let's go ahead and get them glued in position and see what they look like. Alright, so I made it to this point right now. The whole structure is pretty much standing and everything like that. So I haven't been doing a whole lot more recording, but we've been having a lot of rain in the last couple of days. And with this metal roof, you can't hear a word I'm saying when it starts downpouring inside here. So, but this is the one side so far. I got my border on the bottom here. Got that piece on the top I made. I'm getting ready to work on the door. Essentially what I want to do is I want to kind of make the door kind of like braised panel on the bottom and kind of see through up here so you can see what's on the other side of it. Maybe give it a little patina, like so wrought iron or, you know, kind of look to it like a lot of the ones you see. Then once you get to this side right here, I got the window up on the top there. I do that top piece. And I was going to kind of round that top piece out a little bit, but I felt that since everything else is so boxy and square on this side, that probably would have looked a little weird. So that's why I kind of did like the angle right there, and then there's sort of the crosshatch kind of look on that window up there, just kind of tie these elements together. I do think I'm going to put a little small border on this bottom here, just because I feel it's a little too plain. But outside of that, this is kind of where I'm at with it. So next steps, I'm going to start working on that other door for the other side and keep moving along. All right, so I'm getting ready to sketch something out for the door. You ever have one of those moments where you're working on a project, you think, crap, I just made more work for myself. The reason why I'm saying that is because I made that very decorative looking top piece up there. If I don't copy that, at least for the upper half of the door and then do something different down there, it's going to look completely out of place. So now I essentially have to recreate that a second time, but on my door. So here we go. All right, same process. Going to do a template so I can flip it over to make things symmetrical. All right, so I got everything all traced out, ready to go. I'm going to do kind of like a raised panel deal down here, kind of like bars right here in the middle because I want it to be as open as possible so they can see inside. And then the top section that kind of mimics what I did on the top of the mausoleum. But I started thinking about it. This by itself, with just being foam, especially like these parts right here, they're not really going to hold up. So I'm going to have to go to the hardware store, get another sheet of that thin plywood, glue this to the plywood first, and then cut everything out. That plywood will give it a nice little backer and stuff like that to help give it a little bit of reinforcement, stuff like that. The thing is, like, I'm not going to have anybody standing behind this, so I don't have to worry about anybody really hitting it or anything like that. But in the meantime, until I can get to the hardware store to do that, I'm going to go ahead and start painting the mausoleum. And then once I get that plywood, we will jump back on this. So we finally reached the point of paint. So I'm going to go ahead and put my first heavy coat of gray on like I've been doing. What that does, that just makes everything one neutral color. So when I start the aging process, everything ages evenly. So the fine, tedious work, taking the little paintbrush and getting into all the nooks and crannies. I got to do this to both top pieces because the other side with the crosshatch, I got to do the exact same thing. So the first step on all my painting, what I like to do is I like to use black. And what I use that for is just to highlight areas like contours, raised areas, sunken areas, water runs, and stuff like that. And then I come back with the other colors. All right, so the next step is I'm going to go ahead and get the interior fully blacked out because you don't want anybody to see like the bare wood or the foam or anything like that. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and use that super dark blackish green that I've been using lately to kind of start my aging process. I definitely like this color because it really gives you an aging aspect really quickly, and then it's just fine details after that. Okay, so I got my door all cut out. Now I kind of messed up on that bottom there, so I got to add another piece before I do my bevels to kind of get my raised panel look. But I got that piece of wood on the back side. You see it really stiffened it up. I mean, it still wobbles, but you can see where it's not breaking, especially these pieces right here. Now, how I cut all this stuff out is a good friend of mine handed me one of these blades and told me to give it a shot. I don't know if y'all seen these things being posted online and stuff like that. These weird looking blades right here. They're supposedly good for like foam, wood, plastic, PVC, things of that nature. Surprisingly, it actually cut pretty good. Now, I don't think it'll cut through that 1/2-inch plywood right there very well, but like small lightweight stuff like this 1/4-inch veneer style wood right here, it seemed to cut through that pretty good. I would say my only gripe about it, I guess you can say, is because it doesn't really have any teeth. You see where it's just kind of like rounded off. As my material is on the edge of the table or hanging off because of the length of the blade, it was vibrating my stuff really bad, and I was kind of worried about, especially when I get into these thinner areas, it possibly cracking and stuff like that. So that's kind of my only little gripe. You just have to go a little slow depending on what you're cutting. But overall, I thought it cut pretty good. So I'm going to do a little demonstration just to kind of show you guys how well I think cuts and how it really doesn't tear up that foam at all, or even so much as this foil that's on here. You can see where it didn't tear any of this stuff up when I cut it. So let me show you that real fast. I had the volume shut off for this portion because obviously the jigsaw is going to be really noisy, but you're going to see where at first how it shakes everything really bad. But you can see I can make nice curves, sharp bends, and stuff like that. And you see where I'm not tearing that foam up or that foil or anything like that. And I'm cutting through both foil and wood at the same time. So these blades are actually kind of cool. And ta-da! So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a dark brown for the door itself to kind of give it like that old bronze copper kind of color, I guess you can say. And I'm going to come back with that other custom color that I use for like my patina. And I have this heavily diluted down with water, and I'm just going to let it run down and try to create the look I want. Okay, so here we go. The door's all painted, dried, installed, ready to go. So you see on the top of the door how I kind of made it mimic that top piece up there. So this way it kind of ties the two pieces together and kind of doesn't make them look out of place from each other. But you see where I got that top looking pretty good. I did the bars. I got kind of like my raised panel look here on the bottom. I also put these on hinges so the door can actually open and close. Because I'm still thinking about doing my flying crankouts in there, but I also thought if it was possible to make a linkage that is over here that's kind of hard to see, that maybe I could use the same motor that I'm going to use for the flying crankouts and actually make it to where the door kind of opens and closes like this also at the same time. To kind of give it a little extra movement, maybe I could put a chain on there so it kind of hits the mausoleum a little bit to kind of give a little extra noise or something like that. So, but that part's done, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on my flying crankouts rig. All right, so I've been kind of working on the rig a little bit. I've had to do a couple different arrangements, but I think this one might actually kind of work for what I'm going for. You can see where I got the motor mounted here. I got my arm right here. I got my 3 strings. I also putting the hands further forward than the head versus being in the same plane, like a lot of times you'll see. I'm hoping it gives it a little bit more depth, a little more dimension to it, with the hands being a little further forward than the head and all that kind of stuff. But you can see I mounted it this way versus the motor being like this, where the strings would probably have a little bit more of a straighter shot. There's kind of a reason behind that, and I'm gonna have to put it in the mausoleum so I can show you what that is. So let me put it in there real fast. I'll do some explaining real quick. Okay, so I got it inside here. So essentially what I'm doing is I have it set up to where it actually just kind of slides onto these little platform pieces here, so I can pull it in and out as I want. But what I want to do is I want to try to keep it as low profile as possible. So this way I don't have to do a whole bunch of extra padding up here, because if I had the motor, say here, spinning like this, then I have to put a blinder up here. So this way people that are looking from this side at the scare actor can't see it. But to make it look good, it would have to follow the line of the whole roof. Otherwise, you're just going to see like this weird looking little blinder up there, which I don't think is going to look good. But once it's all painted black, I hang my curtain and all that stuff on there, and everything's dark, during the setup and all that stuff, and you got the people out this direction, they're not really going to notice that because it's going to be dark, and you're not going to see anything else anyways because of the curtain and stuff like that. So that's the reason I'm going with this arrangement. So hopefully it works like I want it to. So let me get the ghost on there, and we will see this thing in action. All right, so I got the ghost put inside there. I got some landscape fabric on the door to create some obscurity and stuff like that. I did put an extra motor on there, so the door opens and closes. You can see I got a little chain on there and stuff like that. They see the door just creeps open about 2 inches or so. The next thing is I still got to build that blinder so I can control the lighting a little bit better. So I'm not going to do any shots real fast with the lights off until I get that blinder put on there. I just want to show you where I'm at with it at the moment. The door's moving, ghost is in there, everything's working out pretty good. So let me get that blinder made and we will wrap this up. Okay, so I've been kind of working on that piece that's separating the two sides of the mausoleum. And when I started thinking about it, with the one side being a lot more shallower than this side right here, with the ghost and all that stuff in there, I really can't open the door up far enough if, say, I got to change a light bulb or fix the ghost or something like that. And if I put something back here that's all screwed in position with all screws and locked in place, then it's going to be a pain in the butt to get it out and change it, especially if it's something I got to do quickly. So I'm going to turn this into a double door where one swings one way, that one swings the other way, opens it right up. So now if I need to, say, change a light bulb, fix the ghost, whatever the case may be, I can get to it, do what I need to do, close this back up. There'll be one screw in the top here that'll hold it to that rig up here, so it keeps it nice and solid. And there we go. And now I got my two sections. Or if, say, down the road I decide that I want to turn this into just a one-sided mausoleum, I can open these up and I can either put a blinder on that side and I can have something facing this way, or vice versa. I put a blinder on this side and have something face that way. So now I've turned it into not only a two-sided, but I also still use it as a single-sided as well, just by opening up these little panels right here. So that's where I'm at with those. As far as the ghosts, I just couldn't get it to look really good. One, I'm increasing the RPM on the motor. Two, I'm painting the face
so it'll stand out better with the blue light. So I'm taking my airbrush and I'm going over it, making a few coats. I'm going to come back and do the black and stuff like that and darken it all up. And hopefully that'll catch those blue lights a lot better and make this look much more, I don't know, sinister, I guess you can say, because it's going to kind of have a little more of a glow and such. And then after I get all that done, we should be able to do a little nighttime shot and show you what this thing looks like. So as soon as I get my motor and get that all done, we will finish this prop right up. All right, so I think I'm pretty much about done with it. I can't think of anything else I want to do with it right now. I did up the motor to a 5 RPM to speed that ghost up. Definitely looks much better than it did before. I already got the ghost back in position. You can also see just painting that face with the white, even without the lights on, you can already see the face much better than it did before, so it definitely looks much creepier now. Now, I kind of wish I would have had the rig fully in position before I built the door, because I probably would have made like this section right here a little bit shorter, because I'm trying to balance it out, make it so you can see it at both areas here and here. So I kind of have it balanced as good as I'm going to get it for how much travel I can put into the thing. So for like adults, he's going to come up and you'll see him kind of poking out through this little area right here. Kids, when they're down here, they'll be able to see him down here because he's going to come all the way down to about there and such like that. So the kids will be able to see him pretty good, and the adults will be able to see him kind of creeping through that little opening right there. So, and you'll also kind of see him through the little, gaps and stuff like that. So hopefully it kind of makes it a little on the creepy side. But before I show the reveal, I want to show you guys what I did with some of the wiring, because I also wanted to try to wire this thing to where it's I can easily take it apart for transporting, storage, without having to disassemble a whole bunch of items and stuff like that. So essentially what I did here is my main carriage here, that's the motor and all this stuff's attached to. You see I got the light right there, the motor, and the other light. Those are all connected together. They run down to this wire right here, which is only inside this little carriage piece. I'm not worried about painting all this stuff because you can't see it anyways. Comes down to this little block that I made. One is my live side, the other is my neutral side. That's for my 110. So when I want to go ahead and pull this out, all I got to do is unhook these two wires from those screws right there. I can take the top out. This piece right here is anchored to the sidewall. So when I take the front off, this whole piece right here will stay with it. I also got to disconnect the motor. So I just disconnect the motor, disconnect those. I can take that apart, but all that stuff can stay attached to it. Then I ran the wires down this side. Now I did have to paint all this stuff black, but you will see that. That comes up to this outlet, which then goes to this momentary switch. But that's for so the live actor has a strobe light to kind of make it a little more creepy and things like that. And kind of the same thing. All this stuff is attached to the sidewall mainly. Now this right here, I just have it screwed right here, but I can just take this off, move it right here, when I'm transporting, and put it back. The strobe light literally just unplugs. So that's why you just take that off whenever. So I kind of did that way, so this way it's easy for me to transport and take it apart. And then once this thing's sitting in the grass, I'll be able to take the cord, just put it up underneath the wall. So when I plug it in, that one plug runs the entire prop. So this way I don't have to have like multiple different plugs to run everything individually or separate. So let's go ahead and shut some lights out and show you the reveal.
All right, so here we are. Here's the finished mausoleum. Overall, I don't think this one turned out too bad. I definitely ran into a few little challenges between the ghost, that blinder wall, and things like that. A few extra steps had to be made for a few of the items. Now, when it comes to the blue light, like normal, to the naked eye, it definitely looks much better than it does on camera, but that's just kind of normal. Now, that power supply I showed you on the inside, since no one's going to have access to that front side, I'm not worried about covering those. So if anybody was curious about someone touching it, getting shocked, that's not going to happen because they won't have access to that area. Only I will. We're going to come around to the other side, pan up real fast, and then we're going to kind of show you the doorway. Figured I'd dress up and show you what a scare actor is probably going to do. Now, for the next little couple seconds, we're going to show a little slideshow, just to kind of show everything with just the regular camera. Overall, like I said, I don't think it'll turn out too bad. You guys have to leave me comments on what you guys think. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.